Hello again, wrestling fans, and welcome to the Good Friends, Better Enemies podcast. My name is Jay, and I'm joined, as always, by the ever-loving Tyrone. Tyrone, my friend, how are you today?
Pretty good, Jay. We're getting real close to Christmas, which we both celebrate, and I'm starting to actually finally feel festive about it.
Yeah,
how about yourself? Are you feeling jolly today, bud?
I sure am. It's nut cutting time. We're getting pretty close to Christmas, and as you said, have a lot of fun and festive things coming up. I mean, unfortunately, in the situation we're in the world these days, I don't know that it's going to be anything more than a virtual Christmas in some semblances, but all things considered, any day above ground these days is a good day. So I'm very pleased to be here with you and do this podcast, and I'm very thankful for all the blessings that 2020 has given us, and trying not to dwell on negatives.
Couldn't have said it better, man. Couldn't have said it better. This is our last show before Christmas, so it's only fitting that maybe we talk a little bit of Christmas things. What do you want for Christmas this year, Jay? What did you ask Santa Claus for?
I asked Santa Claus for some extra days to sleep in and not be on the clock for work. I wouldn't mind a couple extra days off, just not having to be bound to a cell phone or a computer for the better part of the day. But, again, all things considered, with the pandemic being what it is, I'm very, very fortunate to be employed and to still be earning a paycheck. There's a lot of folks that are struggling right now, so I'm certainly not complaining about working. And but all things considered, I think I'm just thankful, hoping for some time with some family and my girlfriend and things of that nature, and just taking it easy. How about you?
All I want for Christmas is a new co-host. That's it. I couldn't ask for anything else.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll see if I can't work on that for you. We'll see if we can't get you a broomstick, because you're carrying this thing right now. I couldn't carry it if it had handles on it. So you are definitely the
funny. That's how you also describe me that way. You couldn't carry me unless I had handles on me.
Well, come on now. I certainly didn't want to make you feel bad about it. I just thought that I'd throw you a bone, being that it's Christmas. But anyhow, now that we both have our Christmas wish list out of the way, hopefully Santa Claus is listening. He'll be able to get you a new co-host and get me an extra day off. And from there, we are covering today, folks, as alluded to in a previous episode, the WWF Capital Carnage pay-per-view from 1998. It took place on December 6, 1998 in the London Arena in London, England. But before we get there, we're going to touch on a couple of things from this week in wrestling history. Tyrone, what have you got for us, buddy?
Well, I got a little interesting one today, and that would have been this day in 2000. Edge and Christian beat The Rock and The Undertaker to take the tag titles from them. And it's kind of fun to think that The Rock and The Undertaker were tag team champions. I always forget that little pairings like that kind of happen from time to time.
I have to be completely honest. I mean, I have a pretty good memory about the Attitude Era, and I have absolutely no memory of The Undertaker and The Rock being tag champions. Of course, I remember like the Rock and Sock connection, and I remember Austin and Undertaker holding the tag titles going into SummerSlam 1998. And Shawn and Undertaker holding the tag titles going into WrestleMania 23, but zero memory of this whatsoever.
And the Undertaker and the Big Show. We can't forget that one. That was a formidable team if there ever was one.
That's right, the Unholy Alliance.
What about you, Jay? What do you got for us this week? You got anything better than a shitty little tag title win?
Well, I have actually, from December 24th, 1997, the Raw, I have Stone Cold Steve Austin stunning Santa Claus. Now, of course, Santa Claus, it wasn't the real Santa, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It was played by Steve Lombardi, the Brooklyn Brawler, but Santa Claus took the stunner nonetheless. And I guess kind of a fun way to end the year for Austin in 1997. I mean, it so fit with his character at the time. So I'm pretty. I mean, it's a silly moment, but I thought it'd be fun to mention anyway. What do you think?
I feel like Vince McMahon has a weird vendetta against Santa Claus, because it seems almost every year somebody dressed as Santa is taking some kind of a finisher. Maybe he just didn't get him what he wanted as a kid. Now that's why he's trying to take over the world. Who knows? But Vince seems to hate Santa.
Yeah, might be also that Santa Claus is so closely associated with Christmas, and Christmas is a day that Vince can't maybe drive his employees to work full, 24 hours a day. So maybe he's a little bitter about the fact that he can't have everybody at the Titan Tower on the 25th. Do you have another moment
Well,
for us, Pally?
fun little segue into that actually is back in the day when there was wrestling on Christmas Day quite often. December 25th, 82, NWA and WCCW had Christmas Star Wars. We had Ric Flair and Kerry Kerry Von Erich in a steel cage with Flair retaining the title, but it was a weird time then where Thanksgiving Day and Christmas Day were like two of the biggest days for wrestling, which really is not a thing at all anymore now.
No, it is. Well, I think there was a couple of years ago. I want to say maybe 2015. I think it was 2015 that there was a Raw, maybe 2016. There was a Raw on Christmas Day. I do recall. I didn't watch it, but I do remember it happened. No, you're right. It is an interesting thing. I mean, I think the world was a bit different back then too, in that sense that it was more of a happening. I mean, nowadays we have so much content and media thrust at us, bombarded with us through social media and things of that nature every single day, that events like this kind of slip under the radar a little bit more than, say, 40 years ago, when you had a special event like this. Even going back into the 90s, when you had the Survivor Series, or the late 80s, the Survivor Series, to your point about Thanksgiving, really cool. I think you're not going to do it every year, but I think one year, when you're the Survivor Series is close to you in your neighborhood or in your city, that you do your Christmas turkey dinner, and then afterwards you go and later on that evening you get to go see some live WWF Survivor Series action. I think that's really fun, and I think that's something that's kind of lost. I also love the idea of pay-per-views and events being big events being not always on Sundays as well. I think that's kind of fun when you get like a big Survivor Series on a Wednesday or Thursday kind of thing. But yeah, this event, it's on the WWE Network. It was quite a big blow-off for the feud with the Von Erichs and Ric Flair. So a good throwback. And I was going to mention one more moment in wrestling history, but this was it, and you scooped it from me. So I guess we're pretty much done with that segment.
Yeah, sometimes I like to steal your thunder from we've seen that before, and it'll probably keep happening.
Not if you get your Christmas wish. I won't be your co-host anymore.
Oh, decisions. Now do I have to take back my wish?
No.
Yeah, I'll take it back, Jay. You're all right.
Oh, that's very sweet of you. I don't, blowing out somebody else's candle doesn't make yours shine any brighter, pal. So let's just keep going with this, and we'll see how we do. Maybe if it doesn't work out, you can be your Valentine's Day wish that you find somebody else.
Don't tell my wife that.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Okay. Well, I think with that being said, it wouldn't be appropriate for us to continue without briefly touching on the passing of Zeus, Tony Lister. It is a terrible tragedy when anybody passes away, obviously, but he was quite young, relatively speaking, and another wrestling superstar, or rather famous name in wrestling, that we've lost again this year. We're just coming off the heels of losing Pat Patterson, and now we've lost Zeus, who as little of a time frame that he was involved with WWF, it was just basically the latter part of 88 and 89. He made a pretty big impact. I mean, he main evented a SummerSlam, and then of course the No Holds Barred movie. They did a pay-per-view concept where they would show you the film, and then the match preceding it would be on pay-per-view as well. He had a big impact and a big footprint towards the latter half of the 90s with his involvement with the WWF. So I think we kind of have to touch on it a bit.
100% agree with you. Not to sound mean here, but to correct you, his name was Tom Tiny Lister, not Tony Lister.
My apologies.
But yeah, Zeus was, for some reason, one of those characters that I always gravitated to anytime I thought of wrestling as a child. It didn't dawn on me that he was only around for a couple of months back then, but yeah, he really wasn't there long. And that No Holds Barred movie, not to speak ill of the dead, but my God, I'll gladly think of him from Friday, happily, versus No Holds Barred.
Yeah, I realized as well a couple of years ago that he was actually in the Dark Knight as well, Christopher Nolan's Batman film. He was the prisoner on one of the ships that stopped the security guard from turning the key that would blow up the other cruise liner. So he was in that film as well. He had a pretty successful career, done some pretty interesting things. I mean,
Yeah,
it's pretty cool to say that you.
he also played Adam Sandler's brother in Little Nicky.
Yeah, so there you go. I mean, he's had a kind of very interesting career. He's one of those guys that I think probably would have been really successful on the Comic-Con tours. I'm not sure if he did them or not, but it would be kind of neat, considering how many different aspects of pop culture he touched. Batman fans and wrestling fans and Friday and Adam Sandler, film fans. So he's touched a lot of different. He has fingers in a lot of different pies. So I would imagine he would have been a pretty hot ticket at these Comic Cons. So I don't know if he did them or not, but nonetheless, I think it's fair for us to raise a glass to Tom Tiny Lister. My apologies from before. I think I just kind of had a word slip there with the Tiny and the Tom. So let's raise a glass to Tiny Lister, Zeus, and here's to you. Rest in peace,
Yep,
my friend.
somebody that I definitely feel will be in at least the celebrity wing of the WWE Hall of Fame in the near future.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. He probably should. He does have a place there for sure. He had a big enough impact, even if it was a short one, that I think he deserves to have some recognition. So
He definitely deserves it more than Kid Rock and Donald Trump. There's no denying that.
that's absolutely true. I agree with that. I don't know if I'd put him in as a celebrity though. I'd probably put him in as a performer, but as a character.
Yeah, either way, as long as he's in. But just to reiterate, rest in peace, Tiny. See you on the other side.
That's it. Cheers.
All right. Well, I think it's time we get into this British only pay-per-view that you had me rebook.
Yeah. Well, like we talked about last week, or when I told you what you were going to be rebooking. I know that the Attitude Era isn't necessarily your favorite, but at the same token, I thought that you'd appreciate, the depth of talent on this roster. So it'd be a fun one to rebook. And again, because it's a UK only pay-per-view, you don't really necessarily, you can adhere to storylines sort of loosely. It's important that there's some continuity, but you don't necessarily have to further storylines along. So I think it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to hearing what you booked.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way I looked at it. Was a little bit of storyline, but a lot of almost house show type matches.
Yeah.
And like I said the last week, I actually really enjoyed the British only pay-per-views and the UK, the Australian only ones, because they weren't something you saw here. So when the DVDs came out, I always made sure to go buy them because it was fresh to me.
Yeah. And they always had really, really cool cards, like to your point, like the house show-esque cards. Like a lot of time, I remember one of the first house shows I ever went to, the main event was Sid versus Brett versus Sean, which to you, I'm sure wouldn't have been, much of a main event. But for me, as a 12-year-old kid, I was pretty excited about it. And this was something that we'd never seen on television. It was a house show main event. So I feel almost as if this is kind of the same sort of thing where you get these kind of colossal matches for the Federation at the time that you weren't going to see on terrestrial North American pay-per-view. So you end up seeing them on these kind of fun cards in different markets, to your point, like the Australias and things like that. Like I think the main event for the global warming was Triple H and Brock Lesnar and Rock, maybe in a triple threat, which would have been a super fun match. I remember watching it. It was very entertaining. So no, I think you're approaching this perfectly. Absolutely.
I mean, there was really no other way to approach it for me because, as you said, I'm not a big Attitude Era fan. So I definitely made quite a few changes to this. I kept a few things the same, but yeah, I think you're actually going to like a couple of things that I did here, man.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I just want to, before we get into it, just quickly, just for a minute or two, just provide some context into the time of the company here. We're coming off of the Survivor Series 1998, which was the Deadly Game tournament. We crowned The Rock as the new World Wrestling Federation champion. Now, The Rock had been building momentum throughout the fall of 98 to become really a number two behind Steve Austin as the most popular fan favorite. The fans turned him face slowly after the SummerSlam ladder match with Triple H. Just as he was reaching that crescendo or that apex of face popularity, we get screwed and swerved by Vince McMahon borrowing from the Montreal Screwjob finish at the Survivor Series with The Rock putting the sharpshooter on Mick Foley, Mankind, in the middle of the ring. And then, of course, we have the new corporate Rock champion. Now, I think that this was a stroke of brilliance because then when he does get turned into a face again, it's going to add another layer of popularity to him. I think it's so fun that we had this wrinkle put in where normally you'd have somebody who is building that kind of momentum. You would just go with it and they'd become a babyface champion or babyface superstar. This time, the fans get kicked in the teeth and The Rock goes back to being a corporate member. We are also coming off of a couple of other interesting things in the company. We're going to be going into a Buried Alive match with The Undertaker and Stone Cold Steve Austin. These two guys had been having a rivalry since the summer of 1998, which kind of culminated with this feud, the Buried Alive match. And we're going into the Vancouver, British Columbia Rock Bottom pay-per-view, which was going to have a rematch between Rock and Mick Foley, Mankind, as well as this Buried Alive match. A couple of other interesting things to note. On a very sad note, while we're watching this pay-per-view, Jim Ross actually had an attack of Bell's palsy on air while he was calling the event. He had found out through the headset that his mother passed away during the events while it was taking place. So this was the last time we'd seen Jim Ross on pay-per-view until WrestleMania 15. He had a brief angle with Dr. Death Steve Williams, where he was sort of fighting against Michael Cole or burying Michael Cole for being a crappy announcer. So that was kind of weird, kind of enjoyable to see a heel JR, but very short-lived and very weird. So I just wanted to touch on a couple of things so people are caught up to where we are in terms of our time frame and our in the year and what's going on as far as the most popular or most visceral feuds in the company. So without further ado, Tyrone, why don't you take it away and bring us up to speed with Capital Carnage?
All right, so I don't know if you want to run down the original match card. Should we do that? And then we can kind of go from there as to what I had booked.
Well, did you want me to go through the match card just in one foul swoop and then because you've just blown it up so much, or do you want to go match for match?
You know what? Let's kind of go match for match, but a lot of it may not line up, if you know what I mean.
That's totally fine. No problem.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so we're gonna start it off on a different note because the opening match of this card originally, I believe, was Gangrel and Al Snow, correct?
That's right, accompanied with Head.
So my opening match is Tiger Ali Singh coming out and just crapping all over the British people. And who comes out to challenge him but none other than the manly man, Steven Regal.
Love it.
He comes out, he gets the babyface pop. It's a quick match. He just destroys the hell out of Tiger Ali Singh. And then the crowd pops for it. That's it. Tiger Ali walks away. We get the hero's welcome with Regal. We're off to a great start in my eyes.
Yeah, I like that booking a lot. It's definitely going to be more entertained. I mean, not that Gangrel and Al Snow was a bad match. I just watched this pay-per-view a couple nights ago to prep for this, and it was a solid match. But I definitely think that that's something. Once Bulldog left to WCW in 1997 with Brett, I think that you're missing that UK superstar that was going to bring some of that hometown feel and home country pop. And enthusiasm from the crowd. So I think you subbing in Steven Regal here, even if he was doing that man's man gimmick, which for my money was one of the most underrated theme songs ever. I think it's a great addition to this card. I love the idea that you're having Regal come out, and he would definitely be getting a pretty monstrous pop. Even if he was portrayed as a heel in North America, he would have been absolutely getting a huge ovation in the UK. So good on you on this one. I like it.
Yeah, Regal almost would be like the Bret Hart of the UK, where Bret comes to Canada, he gets cheered out of the building. He goes to the States, he gets booed out of the building. They're going to treat Regal the exact same way. So I thought, why not start it off with something high, and then we can work some lows in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a little side note on this. I have to say, I very, very viscerally remember there was a house show in Toronto right around this time. I think it was November 7th, 1998. And Regal was on the card. And he came to the ring with the plaid shirt and the hard hat. He even had the jorts on. But I always thought it was so funny that he kept his regal, like the burgundy boots and knee pads. I just thought it was such a contrast, like such a clash. Like from like the knees down, he was still the blue blood, and then from the knees up, he was a member of the Village People. I just thought it was just a funny kind of wardrobe choice on his behalf.
Well, I mean, the man has a sense of humor. We know that. We know he's a legendary prankster. So you got to keep some semblance of your original gimmick.
I just thought it was such a clash. It was really funny. Anyways, that's just a little sidebar. But anything else on this one, man? I think you did a great job on that match.
No, I'm ready for the next. What was the next match on the card?
The next match, we have the Headbangers, Mosh and Thrasher, defeating the Legion of Doom, Animal and Draws. Now, before we get into your booking, I just want to quickly point out that we had just done an angle where Hawk attempted suicide because of substance abuse. He was, well, I guess allegedly, it was either he was thrown or pushed by Draws, or he jumped himself. That was kind of the angle they were going with. Did he jump or was he pushed? But anyways, this sort of harkens back to the Jake Roberts stuff with Jerry Lawler a few years back, but this was even more pushing the envelope now. You have the guy literally showing up, inebriated on the air, not actually inebriated, but the angle he was portraying as if he was pilled up or drunk, falling off the ropes, tagging the wrong tag partners, and then of course culminating with this Titantron spot. I just thought it was in such poor taste, and also was just so hurtful to the legacy of the Legion of Doom. I mean, if you don't have anything for the Legion of Doom, I'd rather see them gone than to have to do stuff like this.
So we talked about how William Regal, or Steven Regal at the time, was a definite high on the pay-per-view. Yeah. This whole Legion of Doom angle and gimmick was a definite low. I hated every minute of it, but I did keep them on the card just so I could have LOD 2000 versus Nation of Domination members, so it could be LOD versus NOD.
Okay.
So you had Draws and Animal taking on Mark Henry and D'Lo Brown, and you had Mark Henry and D'Lo Brown going over. They were the younger upstart team. Legion of Doom is established, whether or not it's Hawk and Animal or Animal and Draws. They're an established name. So I think it helps a little bit more to put over the heels in this one, get some momentum on them going forward, and you kind of tease a little bit of distension between Draws and Animal. It's a bit of a schmoz finish where Draws runs into Animal as he's on the apron. They do the whole, oh, what happened? And then D'Lo rolls him up. That's how the match ends. So you're still teasing, are they on the same page? What's going on? Did he push Hawk? All that nonsense.
Right. Couple of questions here. The first one being, so I don't know necessarily that Mark Henry and D'Lo are really heels anymore at this point. They had just done the Mark Henry going on the date with China stuff, which was hilarious. And then, of course, you had D'Lo as the chauffeur. So I don't know that they were necessarily heels anymore. At best, I think they were, tweeners. They were in between heel and baby. The other thing, too, is I don't know that the Nation of Domination existed anymore.
Yeah, I thought about that after I did that. I think you're right about the Nation being disbanded at this point, or disbanded. But just because D'Lo and Mark Henry were getting laughs doesn't make them not heels. They always still kind of worked as heels in the ring. Like D'Lo Brown, for the most part, never worked as a babyface, even when he was one. He still had that cocky attitude, everything like that. He was always a heel in the ring.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely did have that edge of a heel personality. I can't argue with that. I maybe it was just through my eyes. I might be seeing it differently than the majority of people are. I just didn't really see them at this point really as heels. Maybe a month or two previous they were, but anyways, I understand what you're doing with this match. I completely understand why you would have them go over on LOD, especially when it wasn't really even LOD. It was like Animal and this sub. And no knock to Draws. Like Draws was a hell of an athlete, and he did have his place on the card in the WWF. His career was short-lived, obviously because of the catastrophic injury. But I hated this incarnation of the LOD. It was just like, we have nothing else to do for them. So let's just break them up in this way that, or rather put dissension between them by shoehorning this rookie into it, and then having, Hawk have all these personal problems. I just hated how they just diminished this team who just a few years previously came back, or actually the year previous, came back to the WWF and were such fan favorites. They were one of the most celebrated tag teams of all time. To be reduced to this kind of garbage, I hated it. So I'm glad I'm glad you had Mark Henry and D'Lo go over. I didn't want to see this version of LOD win.
And when it comes to tag teams, there's no more kiss of death name than adding 2000 to the end or the new to the beginning. You look at the new Rockers, the new Blackjacks, LOD 2000. All of these gimmicks were trash and did not go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I understand that they wanted to freshen the gimmick of the LOD. I totally understand that. But at the same time, you can do that by doing other things. You don't need to give them a new name. You don't need to give them helmets and, short shorts and stuff like this. I thought that having Sunny with them was kind of a good idea at the beginning. I thought that she added some sex appeal to them. I thought that was good. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel as though you could have still gotten some mileage out of the original LOD gimmick. And when that finally fizzled out, or the fans weren't reacting to it anymore, you weren't getting that, quote, Road Warrior pop anymore, then, you can kind of transition them into another position. Maybe they become agents or something. But I definitely didn't need to see. I just feel like, truthfully, this was a bastardization of the Legion of Doom. And I think it completely diminished their status and popularity. Not forever, but for a period of time, people kind of looked at the LOD as like, oh, God, who wants to see this?
Yeah, but Jay, I got to ask you, what was worse, Animal and Draws or Animal and Heidenreich?
Animal and Heidenreich.
At least they won the title together, though, which is really, really sad to think about. But yeah, I agree. Heidenreich was just one of those guys that all the potential in the world until he, or as another podcast likes to say, and then the bell rang.
Heidenreich, you know what Heidenreich was? Heidenreich was the Ruthless Aggression era's Nails. That's what Heidenreich was.
You literally just took the words right out of my goddamn mouth, and I don't know how we were both thinking that exact same thing.
Because we're good friends and we're better enemies, pal.
All right, let's move on to the next one. I'm done talking about the bastardization of the Legion of Doom.
Yeah, it was shameful. I'm pretty confident this isn't going to change much, but I could be wrong. The next match we have on here is Val Venus going up against Goldust in a singles matchup.
So the match stayed. You're absolutely right. But I did something a little different here because they had Val go over in the original one, and then they had Goldust kind of attack him afterwards.
Yeah.
I just turned it into a no contest. They just brawled the hell all over the building, outside the ring, and the ref just ended it. No contest. Nobody loses. Goldust is still hot in my eyes.
Yeah, that sounds good. The thing about Goldust at this point was, I don't know if you recall this time frame very well, Tyrone, but during the summer of 1998, Dustin Rhodes was playing this gimmick where it was almost alluding to the fact that he had become born again. He was walking around with these plaques and signs saying he has risen, he will be back.
And he was just referring to Goldust. It was the second coming of Goldust is what it was supposed to be.
Well, yeah, I don't know if that's what they originally intended. I think maybe what might have happened was that they started off legitimately wanting him to be a born again, but it just flopped so terribly that maybe they just decided that they would transition into the return of Goldust. That's what it feels like to me, because he had just thrown his Goldust gear into a flaming barrel on Raw. I think it was during the Love Shack, Dude Love's brief interview segment on Raw when he was in a feud with Steve Austin. But Goldust came out and threw his gear into the trash and said he was just Dustin Rhodes, and he had yelled at Vince McMahon for treating him like a piece of meat and just never respecting him and this and that. And then he went into this angle. So I really don't know if they knew where they were going with it. I think a lot of the angles with WWF at the time with Russo and things of that nature, it was kind of like a germ of an idea. I don't know that they were booking that long term, that in like April or May of 98, they would know in October that they were going to bring Goldust back. But with that being said, the fanfare that Goldust had when he came back, the pop was, I remember it was Chicago, Illinois at the Judgment Day pay-per-view, and he was facing Val Venus, and the pop that he got was unbelievable. People just love that character. I love that character. You love that character. But absence makes the heart grow fonder. It's like when he returned at the Royal Rumble 2002. When he came back, that pop that he got was so loud. People just love that character.
Or when he came back to face Randy Orton on Raw. Like, every time he makes a return, that character is huge. And, like,
I was there for that.
Dustin Rhodes is not the best wrestler. We know this. But he made this character into one of... it is my favorite wrestling character of all time.
See,
it's not my favorite wrestler, but it's... Okay, go ahead.
I take issue with that he's not a great... I think he's a phenomenal worker. I didn't say he was
very underrated. I didn't say he was a bad worker. I said he's not the best. Just because he's a good worker, it's like Matt Bourne. Matt Bourne was a good worker, not a great worker, but his version of Doink the Clown was incredible.
Yeah. I don't know. I tend to think that Goldust is actually highly underrated as a worker in ring. Also, just to look at even in today's 2020, I mean, he seems ageless. He's still going on AEW, and he looks amazing. He certainly hasn't lost a step for somebody that's north of 50. And he's one of the rare guys that, you can look at being at his age that really, to me, hasn't lost a step. And I watch this stuff pretty carefully. You can kind of start to tell sometimes even from match to match with when some of these guys aren't able to keep up anymore. But then again, the other flip side of that too is that sometimes I think that what happens with older, legends and things of that nature is when they do take those long layoffs between matches, that's when you start to see really, really big diminishing returns from match to match because they're not in the ring consistently. Whereas Dustin has been in the ring consistently with AEW almost weekly. So maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah, I think the only time that Dustin actually ever looked bad was either a Cyber Sunday or a Taboo Tuesday. He was brought back as an enforcer or something like that for the coach.
With Vader.
He came out with Vader, exactly. And he came out and he looked like he had put on a solid 40, 50 pounds, could barely fit in the suit, wasn't moving well. That was the only time that I kind of was like, oh shit, is Goldust done?
That was like Vader too. I remember because him and see, that was like they're covering for Austin. Austin was supposed to face Coach, and then Austin pulled out at the last second. So they had Vader and Goldust come in, and I remember Vader, I think he fell off the ring apron or something. I don't think it was at Taboo Tuesday. I think it was afterwards, but he was so overweight that he couldn't even move. He slipped and fell off the ring apron. I remember it being pretty funny. I felt bad for him, but it was pretty funny. But I do remember what you're talking about. Goldust had sporadic issues as well, personal issues that we are not going to get into here, but that probably affected it as well. But he's been consistently for the last 10 years or so. Do you remember when we were at that Roadblock pay-per-view and he was there and how loud we popped for him during the dark match?
Yeah, I think the only people we may have popped louder for that night were JBL and Mark Henry.
Yeah, I was going to say Mark Henry got a huge pop from us too. But anyways, going back to the Val Venus and Goldust match, I do like that finish. I think that sometimes to do a non-finish like that's okay. I mean, it was kind of like last week when we booked the In Your House, or rather, I booked the In Your House. It's time, and we had the Doug Furnace and Phil LaFon versus Bulldog and Owen match, and it went to a time limit draw. It so rarely happens a time limit draw that I think it's impactful. This no contest when the guys just brawl to the back. I think sometimes for the crowd, they're kind of like, okay, is this over? Because you just don't really see them. But then when you have the ring announcer sort of explain, then it makes sense. And it was adding fuel to the fire for sure. They had a pretty hot angle with Terry Reynolds involved as well. So yeah, I like that booking. Well done.
Thank you. Next.
Well, next we have Tiger Ali Singh taking on Edge, but we've already seen Tiger Ali Singh, and I don't know what you're doing with Edge, so I'll just give you that spot, and I'll all mute.
So here's where we combine a couple of things. We are having a 6-man tag match. We have the Brood, Edge, Christian, and Gangrel taking on the Job Squad of Al Snow, Bob Holly, and Dwayne Gill. I don't know what you think of this, Jay, but I'm pretty sure you can guess who's going over on this one. It's not the Job Squad, hint, hint. It's the Brood.
Okay, well, if you're just gonna give me the answers, then don't test me. Well, yeah, I don't hate this match at all. I mean, it actually happened a couple of weeks later at the In Your House or Rock Bottom pay-per-view. This was one of the matches on the card there, so it makes sense for you to have this match. I think that for you and I, sometimes we tend to combine matches or maybe make a couple of matches with maybe multiple people, just because we want to get people on the card. And I definitely feel like in this particular card, it being this UK only pay-per-view and sort of the house show-esque type booking, you can definitely get away with 6-man tags and multiple team matches and things of that nature. I really like the idea of getting Edge, Christian, and Gangrel together as a unit. I think it kind of is like a nice 1-2 punch. And then, of course, the Job Squad, you have those guys working. I mean, Dwayne Gill obviously wasn't a main event star, but the guy could work. He could definitely knew how to sell. He was a preliminary enhancement talent for the better part of his career. But, you know, he could definitely work. So all the guys in this match were definitely going to have a good effort. You'd have a spirited contest. And I wouldn't be so surprised if in ring, this was one of the better matches on the card.
Well, and not only that, like you had all 3 members of the Brood involved in different matches on this original card. You had Gangrel and Al Snow, so I've kind of combined that in here. You had Edge and Tiger Ali Singh, which I didn't understand why that was happening, because Edge had no association with the Brood unless he was with them. Like, he always was the odd man out. Didn't look like it, didn't wear the vampire shirt. So you really wouldn't know that he was part of it. And we'll get to Christian's absolutely pointless part on this pay-per-view, in my opinion. So I decided to put them all together. They were a new.
You're missing that. You're missing the biggest part of it is Tiger Ali Singh went over on Edge in the actual event.
Yeah, I'm well aware of that. And
you're putting
they were pushing him though.
Pardon?
They were weirdly giving him a push at certain times that made no sense. I don't know if they were just trying to get into like an Asian market or what was going on with him, but for some reason he was going over on guys that he should never have gone over on.
Well, yeah, that's exactly my point. I take no issue with them pushing Tiger Ali Singh or giving him a win here. He was in the middle of doing that gimmick with his handler Babu, where they would offer people in the crowd money to do these disgusting things like lick toe cheese, and it was just disgusting. I actually have to fast forward. If I ever watch an old episode or I have to fast forward through it, it's gross. But
yeah, they were just doing the Attitude Era version of the $1 Million Man and Virgil.
That's exactly. It was
wasn't
like that
anything
combined
new.
With Fear Factor.
So I thought the Brood had been around short, like they had only been a group, I think, at this point for 2 to 3 months. So why the hell were they already doing singles matches when they could do a 6-man and everybody would be happy?
Yeah, well, Christian's first official match on television, it was at the Judgment Day pay-per-view a couple of months prior, where he beat Taka Michinoku for the light heavyweight championship. So his first match was a singles match. But to your point, yeah, it does make sense to have them as a cohesive unit. I think if you're going to have one person out of the 3 have a singles, it should have been Edge. But I have no problem.
But not jobbing to. But he shouldn't be jobbing to Tiger Ali Singh if he's having a singles match. I'm sorry.
That's exactly my point. Is that like I have no problem with you having Tiger Ali Singh defeat someone, but he certainly shouldn't have been Edge. I mean, Edge had a lot of momentum. He had, alluding to the match that happened on the actual card, he had just teamed with Sable at SummerSlam to go up against Jacqueline and Mark Merrow. And say what you will about Sable, but she's arguably one of the biggest, most popular characters in the company at the time. And she was selling tons of merch. She was really over. I mean, her pops, rivaled some of the other top stars in the company. So I'm never gonna talk shit about Sable's popularity in the company. Like,
she was probably the number 2 merchandise seller behind Austin at this time. But we're gonna talk about okay, fair enough. We're gonna talk about Sable in a little while, so let's save that for then, okay?
No, yeah, absolutely. My point is that I'm just saying that there was a lot of momentum right now with Edge's character and how they were pushing him. So for him to do a loss on to Tiger Ali Singh made no sense to me. I mean, if you're gonna have Edge have a singles match, have him go through someone. But that's neither here nor there. So anyhow, anything else you want to touch on with that 6-man tag, or do you want to move forward?
I'm ready to move forward, but I'm going to lead into this one just because we're not necessarily doing a match per se, okay?
Oh, okay. It's all yours, bud.
So throughout this show, we had a couple of segments. We had one where McMahon, Shane, Patterson, and Briscoe all came out and kind of made some announcements where cards subject to change, things were changing. And then later on, we had Vinnie Jones come out and pretty much say he just wanted to beat the crap out of people. So what I have kind of done is amalgamated these segments, and I also gave us a match. We have Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe in a handicap match taking on Vinnie Jones.
Okay, I already see this in my head. I can see Pat and Gerald bumping around the ring for this is it's a great way to get Vinnie Jones involved, and also, it's gonna be a little comedy spot, let's face it. I mean, there might be some serious stuff in nature, maybe towards the finish or something with the corporation getting involved, and I don't know how you booked it. Maybe somebody would come and help Vinnie Jones out to help make the save or something, but
no, I had it that Vinnie Jones wins clean with a right hand to Patterson's face. He sells it, goes down, out cold. Vinnie Jones with the win.
I like it. Now, would Vinnie Jones pull out a red card of his back pocket and put it into Pat's mouth like Ted DiBiase used to do with a $100 bill?
No, there was no red card. There was none of that nonsense because this is all we see of Patterson, Briscoe, and Vinnie Jones for the rest of the card. They are not on it anymore.
Okay. No, I like that. That's good.
That's a lie. We do see them a little later, but we'll get to that.
Okay. I think that's good. I think it makes a little bit more, I understand why he was booked to be a part of the main event and all that kind of thing, but the actual booking on the canon WWF Capital Carnage that actually took place is a little convoluted. I didn't really understand, why they would have him come out and then go back in and then come back out again. So anyways, it was kind of silly, but I like this idea. This is another one of those episodes where we're quite a bit.
I think with Vinnie Jones, they were trying to go for the UK version of the Mike Tyson pop that they had earlier the year.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I know it would not be on the same level, but Vinnie Jones was huge in the UK. He was a footballer. He was transitioning into acting. He would work with the company again down the line in The Condemned with Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, he was just, I'm not sure which year Snatch came out, but I think it was somewhere around this time frame. So maybe a little bit later or maybe the same year. I don't recall, but so he was becoming a fairly, he was pop culture, an icon of pop culture in the UK, I think, at this time. So when he transitioned into the acting as well. So it does make sense. It was a big get for the WWF at the time. I totally understand what you're saying. And to me, it seemed like he was maybe willing to be a little bit more physical than maybe a Mike Tyson who, if he had injured his hand or something during the match, that would have been the end of his boxing career. So, I like this idea. I think it's good. I just said a few minutes ago, we're agreeing quite a bit today, but this is kind of one of those fun throwaway pay-per-views that it was kind of a stopgap between, the Survivor Series and the next In Your House and all that kind of thing. So I think it's fun. It's a good booking. Good on you. Love that you're getting the Stooges on the card. So, yeah, I have no issue with this.
Question for you, Jay. How many matches are left on the actual card right now?
5.
Okay, so I have 7 more. So let's keep rolling, okay?
Yeah, that's fine with me. All right, let's do it.
All right, so next up, I have the New Age Outlaws defending the WWF Tag Team Championship against the Headbangers. They're going over. We have a UK show. There's a good chance that titles don't normally change hands on these. So it's just a normal wrestling match. Nothing special. Gun and dog over.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's continuing a feud as well that had just taken place at the Judgment Day pay-per-view. They had a match, these two teams. There was the Headbangers had just recently turned heel, and they had hit Billy Gunn and Actually, rather, I think the finish of the match at the Judgment Day pay-per-view was Road Dogg just hitting one of the Headbangers in the head with a boombox, and that was the finish. It was a DQ, and they never really did much after that. Although I believe at the Survivor Series the following month, they had a triple threat with D'Lo and Mark Henry, the Headbangers and the Outlaws came out on top. So I think it makes sense. I mean, that they had just feuded a couple of months previous, so hearkening back to that feud makes perfect sense, especially for like a house show-esque type thing. So yeah, I'm all good with that. Totally makes sense that tag titles get retained. Unless you have anything else with that, then that makes perfect sense to me.
No, I'm done with that one. Now,
Okay.
Here's one of the matches that I have a weird issue with. So we're going to talk about one that was actually on the card there, and that is a mixed tag match of Mark Merrow and Jacqueline versus Sable and Christian.
Yeah.
I feel like the only reason Christian's in this match is because, as you alluded to earlier, Edge was in the SummerSlam one. So they're like, oh, why not? They're storyline brothers, throw them on in there.
Yep.
And then you have Mark Merrow, who essentially was done with the company. Like, this was his last match. And on the Raw prior to this said that was his last match. So all of a sudden he's back for one more. He's teamed up with Jacqueline, who they don't get along anymore. Mm-hmm. This whole match made absolutely no sense to me. So we changed it to a match just for the women's championship between Sable and Jacqueline.
Yep. Yeah, see, again, I agree with you. It makes sense. I mean, I think that they tried to explain it in commentary by saying that Merrow was contractually obligated to be at this event, and that's why he was there. This whole match was set up for that spot with Jacqueline to get her top torn off and to expose her breasts on the Sky Box Office pay-per-view. So,
which we can still do that in a women's title match. You still have Sable pin Jacqueline, and then as Tim White's helping her up, somehow she ends up on his shoulders, and bam,
there's a victory roll.
There are the breastises for the rest of us.
That's it. Yeah. I don't know. I can't imagine it being much worse than what we already got. I mean, the only difference is you'd probably get some pretty solid in-ring work with Merrow and Christian. You're not going to get a lot out of Sable, but if anybody's going to get anything out of Sable at this time, it would be Jacqueline. She was a hell of a worker. So, yeah, I mean, you keep it short and sweet. I'm sure it wouldn't be no longer than a 5-minute segment. I can't imagine in your booking, but no, it makes perfect sense. You know, just cut out the trim, like, for lack of a better term, trim the fat and just keep it right to where they want to get to with the two women, because that's where the money was anyways in that match. It was with Sable obviously being the star of the match. So, yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. Just lean it out and you're all set.
All right, we're going to move on to an Intercontinental title triple threat match.
Okay.
Ken Shamrock is defending against Steve Blackman and Double J Jeff Jarrett.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, okay. I'll take that. What's the finish on that?
Shamrock ankle lock on Blackman just to keep Jarrett strong, and they kind of seem like they had plans for him going forward, so he's the one that you want to keep strong, where Blackman and Shamrock were going to have a feud. Shamrock was pretty much going to win it no matter what, so it really didn't do anything different.
Yeah. See, my only thing is that Shamrock and Bossman were kind of becoming a tag team right now. In fact, they'd win the tag team titles not too far from here. And I really like the Shamrock Bossman tag team. So I don't know if maybe I wouldn't have subbed out the Headbangers for Shamrock and Bossman in the tag match. That's just my own personal taste. I'm not saying that your booking of the Headbangers is bad by any means. I'm just saying for my own personal taste, I think maybe that would have been a little bit more box office than having the Headbangers on there. As far as this Intercontinental match goes, I don't know that I would have necessarily. Well, I don't know how the rest of your card is booked, but I don't know that I would have necessarily subbed out Jeff Jarrett for Triple H and had Triple H Blackman and I really don't know. It's so hard to tell. You're absolutely right. I mean, the way you're booking it right now with a house show, you know what? I'm fine with it. Jarrett being in there. I mean, I guess Triple H is maybe past the point of Intercontinental at this time too. So, or certainly they were pushing him in that direction. So yeah, okay. Now that I've thought about it, literally on air, out loud, it makes sense to me. Good, very nice.
Okay. All right, we're going to get into we have 4 main event matches on this one, by the way, and we're going to get into the first one right now. It is Shane O'Mac himself defeating X-Pac for the European Championship in a Duchess of Queensberry rules match.
Okay. Is the Duchess there?
The Duchess is there, and it's, spoiler alert, Pat Patterson in drag.
Oh, it's not Sue Aitchison this time?
No, we went with Pat Patterson, and the reason that Shane McMahon wins this one is this is where the Stooges come back out, help him out. Vinnie Jones comes out to try and make the save for X-Pac. Bossman then comes out, helps take out Vinnie Jones. Shane wins this title because it's Duchess of Queensberry rules, so they can keep restarting it and saying, nope, no DQ, nope, no count out. So Shane's the winner.
Yeah, this is like Attitude Era booking 101. It's not even just WWF, it's WCW, even ECW to an extent at this time. They were just, everything was a friggin' schmoz. Everything was overloaded. Run in. That's just where the industry was at the time. So, yeah, I get it. And if you're going to change one title, it makes sense to change the European on a European pay-per-view. So, I'm dumbfounded that I can't really find fault with any of this booking so far. I mean, it makes complete sense. I mean, again, because the stakes for these matches aren't overly high. It's not necessarily going to, I mean, other than the fact that if you have a title change like this one, you're changing it from X-Pac to Shane. Unless there's a title change, this is really a throwaway show. It's not even broadcast in North America. So, yeah, I have no problem with this. And then it's something fun you can allude to on the television on Monday for Raw. Hey, this is what happened. You missed it in the UK this weekend. You know, Shane won the title, and then he cuts a promo and all this kind of stuff when the corporation comes out. So yeah, I'm all on board with that. Plus, I was so kind of sick of X-Pac at this time, this gimmick of X-Pac, that I'm fine with him doing the JOB.
Oh, I couldn't have said it better, bud. I had heat with X-Pac before X-Pac heat was a real thing.
I just think the gimmick's so bad. Like I don't know. I don't know what it is. Like I love the 1, 2, 3 Kid. I was a fan of 6, but there's just something about X-Pac I can't stand. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. Can you? Like what is it, do you think?
For me, it's probably aesthetic, just like Bret Hart, you know, the poofy, greasy hair. No, honestly, it's probably the cocky attitude of when he was the 1, 2, 3 Kid, he was the underdog that we all wanted to root for and cheer for and have feel-good moments with. When he was 6, it was cool that he was kind of cocky because he was in the NWO with everybody else who was cocky. Yeah. Then he joined DX, and it was just, all right, dude, this is the same shit, just rehashed.
Yeah, I see. I didn't even mind X-Pac when he first came back. Like, I think one of his first matches was like King of the Ring 98 or something. I didn't even mind him then, but there was something that happened. Like, there's some kind of light switch went off for me, like in the fall of 98, where I'm like, I can't stand this guy. So even as a heel with the $1 Million Corporation with Ted DiBiase, I didn't mind him as a heel 1, 2, 3 Kid. It was okay. But just something about the X-Pac character, it's like nails on a chalkboard for me. I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, when he started doing the X Factor gimmick, I kind of went back on his side, mainly just because of that sweet Uncle Cracker theme. But
yeah, I was just going to say, it was the theme that got him over.
Story of the guys' lives, bud. Themes getting people anyway. I do have a feeling that our next matchup here is where we're going to disagree.
All right.
Well, are you ready to potentially get hot, bud?
I am. It's probably going to be something like Steve Austin was never in the company or something like that. So let's see what you got.
The next match is for the WWF Hardcore Championship, and it is the Big Boss Man defeating Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Okay. Oh my God. I knew you were going to do something like this. I knew there was going to be some kind of swerve. Yeah. Is this the main event?
Absolutely not. There's still two more after this.
Okay,
Austin's
so
not main eventing
this
it.
is the stupidest. This you're gonna book Steve Austin in a hardcore title match, third from the top in December of 1998. You are nuts. You're not gonna have Austin.
I'm booking Steve Austin in a hardcore title match in 1998 against the corporation's enforcer, and Austin was feuding with the corporation for over a year.
Well,
So
the
yeah, and
corporation didn't
it's
exist.
also a at this point they kind of did. Boss Man
They
was with them.
well,
The
they,
Rock
but they
was the
did this.
corporate champion. The
They weren't around for
corporation
a
was a
year.
thing at this point. No, not at this point. He wasn't feuding with a year, but he would feud with them for about a year.
Okay, here's my thing. I don't necessarily have a problem with you having him face for the hardcore title. I mean, all things considered, I probably would just have it as a straight match, not even for the title, just have the hardcore champion in a singles match. I take no issue with you having him face Boss Man. I actually think that Boss Man versus Austin were good matches. I really enjoyed those matches. I saw one or two at a house show even, and I thought that they were really well done. They had great chemistry in the ring. On paper, it
So
was
then tell me, Jay. Just
what?
tell me, Jay, what do you have the issue with? The fact that he's doing the job to Boss Man?
No,
Because you know it's not a clean finish. It's a hardcore title match.
My issue is that it's the third from the top. How do you have Austin in 98 and the third from the top match? He's the hottest guy in the history of the business at that point, arguably with Hulk Hogan. Yes, I know, but he's the hottest guy in the business at the time. That's inarguable. And
Yeah.
You have him going third from the top in a hardcore title match.
Okay.
Like,
And here's why, because we're playing by house show rules to a degree, and I'm old school where the title always goes on last. And because of that, and us doing the whole house show rules to a degree, we can play around and try new things.
okay, well, I've been to plenty of house shows where the title goes on before the intermission. Many times because they were doing double shots, and they would have, like, say in Toronto, they would do a 2:00 matinee show. They'd have the champion go on at, like, right before intermission, because they were doing a nighttime show in Buffalo. So they had to they say Austin or whomever it was, they had to get them out of there and get them to Buffalo so that they could do the main event that night. That's like I've seen championship matches go on, in the mid afternoon or whatever, even in the evening. But in this case, there's no reason why he would be third from the top. Like, there's no logical reason. Like, they're not trying to get him to Manchester to do it. He's not doing a double shot in England that night. So I don't understand why you would have him in the third from the top. I have no problem with the match. Just the placement is
Because
nuts.
it's my goddamn show, and if you don't like Steve Austin not being in the main event, Jay, I think it's time you grow the hell up. All right, he doesn't need to be in every main event of the Attitude Era. We're switching things up. God damn it!
God damn it! All right. Well,
Are you done bitching? Can we move on to the next one?
sure. What's next?
Next, we have the number one contendership match for the WWF Championship, and that is Kane defeating Mankind and The Undertaker. Shit on this one now, Jay. I know you wanna.
I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that at all.
Cool.
I have no problem with Kane going over on The Undertaker and Mankind, especially because The Undertaker had been feuding with Kane for a couple of months now, and Undertaker was getting the better of Kane for most of the time. So I'm fine with Kane getting a W here, no problem. And as far as Mick Foley goes, they were a tag team in the summer of 2000 or 1998. So him getting a W over Mankind even doesn't bother me at all. I'm guessing what you're going with this is the winner of this faces the winner of or faces The Rock, or how are we doing this?
No, the winner of this just gets a title shot down the line.
Oh, okay.
It could be at the next UK only pay-per-view. It could be on Raw. It could be on the next, like it's Russo booking. We'll figure it out down the road.
Right. Okay.
The
No,
main
that's
event of this the main event of this show is The Rock defending the WWF Championship against, as Pat Patterson said, Hunter Hearst Helmsley in a first blood match.
All right. Well, personally, for my taste, no, thank you. But I understand why you're doing it. They've had a feud all throughout the year. There's a lot of history already at this point. I mean, The Rock was the first guy to beat Triple H for the Intercontinental title. He won his first Intercontinental title rather from Triple H at the Raw Thursday in Lowell, Massachusetts, in 1997. They had that ladder match in the summer, so I understand you're more or less continuing the feud now with a different title on the line. I get why you're doing it. I personally, for me, in this card, I'm okay with the match. I think it should have been swapped with the Austin Bossman match in terms of placement, but I'm okay. I'm fine with this match. It would have been my favorite match, probably not. I mean, I was kind of burnt out on the Triple H and Rock stuff at this point, just because they had done it so much in '98, and even going into '99, they did it a lot. So I was kind of burnt out with the feud, but I get why you did it, and I'm assuming The Rock went over.
He did, and I really was. That's cool that you're burnt out on this feud. I'd rather watch this feud than more Rock Austin matches ever. I don't think I have ever, like, even looking back on old pay-per-views, sure, 17, great Rock Austin match. When I watch the pay-per-view, do I watch it? No, I tend to skip it because I don't need to watch those matches ever again.
We got a lot less of them than we did Triple H and Rock matches, though. We got a ton of Triple H and Rock matches. We didn't get that many Rock and Austin matches.
And we might still get another Rock Triple H match. You never know. That could happen at a WrestleMania down the line.
And I'd
I'm
be
okay with
excited
seeing
for it
that.
now.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Rock and Triple H feud was a way better feud than the Rock Austin feud. And if you don't like it, fight me. I don't really care.
That's fine. I don't care if you don't care. I mean, for me, I mean, I like the Rock Austin feud. I don't know that it would be my favorite Austin feud in the Attitude Era. I mean, it was obviously the most profitable. It made the most money and stuff, and it was probably the most high profile because they were the two biggest stars in the company. But I don't know necessarily that their feud was my favorite. I like Triple
Well, I
H
also look at the Rock,
actually.
but I look at the Rock Austin feud as almost just the Rock McMahon feud, or sorry, the Austin McMahon feud, adding in the Rock because he was the corporation member and the corporate champion. Yeah, Rock and Austin had a couple of matches for the IC title and whatnot beforehand with the Nation, but really it was just Austin McMahon being continued with the Rock at that point.
No, I don't disagree. I think that at that point, when you see them assembling the corporation, I mean, you had Bossman and Shamrock in it, and then you had Rock in it, and then it slowly grew that you'd have Test in it, you'd have other guys in it, and it would kind of evolve into having
You'd have
more and more
Kane.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd
Well,
have
you're
Kane, you'd have
basically
China, you'd have Triple H, and then you would
yeah.
amalgamate the corporation and the ministry and develop the corporate ministry, and then you had McMahon Austin continue with Undertaker Austin after the sacrifice of Stephanie. It just kept going on and
I
on
know.
and on.
That's what I'm saying. So my point is that really the corporation, and then I guess eventually the corporate ministry, it was all just a massive heel factory for Austin to go through. And that goes back to my point that we had talked about, I believe, in the last episode, the In Your House It's Time episode, is that I always thought Austin was much better on the chase for the championship than he was as a champion. Like, I thought he was a good champion, but it was much more effective and much more interesting television when he was chasing the title as against defending challengers.
You know, I'm not going to lie. The more I think about it, with the exception of the Bret Hart feud, because as much as I'm not a Bret Hart fan, the Austin Bret Hart feud was fantastic and one of the best things to ever happen. I can't think of many Steve Austin feuds that I've been like, this is awesome. This is great. Like, it was just always, to me, Austin versus McMahon and whatever crony he was pulling out. I can't think of anything. It definitely wasn't the Rikishi feud, I can tell you that, because that was just the drizzling shits. But Like, can you tell me a few? I know you said Triple H earlier, but with Austin that you thought was just so outstanding that it was worthy of being the main event of the company for so long.
Um, there are a few that come to mind. I mean, one that's not. I mean, I guess 2001 is still Attitude Era. It's a different, certainly much different company in 2001 than it is 2000 or sorry 98. One that comes to my mind right away is versus Kurt Angle. I mean, I thought that their SummerSlam match in 2001 was outstanding. I really liked that one quite a bit. Uh, it is hard. I mean, you are right to a degree. It was just more or less every time Austin would overcome a challenger, there would be another guy that would be sort of tempted by McMahon, and he'd become McMahon's not advocate, but he'd become McMahon's heavy, for the lack of a better term, to try to take the title off of Austin. So I mean, I really like The Undertaker. I think one of my favorite feuds ever, or the build to the feud ever, rather, was The Undertaker and Austin at the Highway to Hell. I love that build. I thought it was so well done. And I also really enjoyed the Dude Love matches. I know we talked about that before as well, that you didn't like the Dude Love heel gimmick. Neither did I necessarily. But I thought the bell-to-bell in-ring stuff was really good. Other than that, I mean, I
But
guess you could talk about
again,
Shawn Michaels, the build to
again,
the
the
Shawn Michaels
no,
match.
but the Dude Love one was another McMahon crony one, which is to my point where every major feud you can think of was McMahon's crony, with the
Yeah.
exception of Kurt Angle. But even that one, like, McMahon was involved in that. They were singing "Kumbaya" together. When I think good Steve Austin rivalries, I go back to WCW at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with you that there was a certain template or format to Austin's feuds. There's no doubt about that. But I guess to a certain degree, I mean, it was working so well at the time. It was so hot, and it wasn't like people were necessarily getting burnt out with it. I think to a degree they were towards the end, maybe, but um, let's put it this way. If Austin doesn't have the neck injury in 99 and he's out for a year, I don't know how much more momentum he would have had necessarily. I mean, he would have been super, super over, but if he'd kept on doing the same pattern over and over again for another year, I don't know how that would have gone. I really don't. I mean, he was the hottest guy in the company's history, arguably. Certainly at that time he was. But then when he took that year off, I feel like it almost added some more longevity to the character because you hadn't seen him for so long, and when he left, people were still really invested in his character and in his programs with not necessarily so much with McMahon at that point, but other people. McMahon was still there peripherally. But to your point, yeah, I don't know if he'd kept on going back to that well for another year and Austin doesn't have the neck injury. I don't know where he would have been ending up eventually.
I mean, he always would have been at the top of the card, but it almost makes you wonder if he would have kind of fizzled out the way that. I'm trying to think of a good example, and there's just not one on my head. But like, would he have just been a flash in the pan when he came back? Would he have been like when John Cena faced R-Truth for a pay-per-view, or would he have been still a prominent character but getting pissed off because he's fighting Scott Hall at Mania and not fighting the champion? Like, you know what I mean? Is he in his own head and buying his own hype again? Does he walk out again? There's so many questions that could
Yeah.
have happened with him, and I don't know where the character goes.
I guess for me, I love Steve Austin. I love his character. You and I have a different. I know that you don't dislike him, but he's certainly not one of your favorites as the Steve Austin character, the Stone Cold Steve Austin character. I should rephrase. Um, I think that there is a part of Austin as well that he was so popular at the time, obviously, and it was one of the most celebrated eras in the history of wrestling just for its popularity. But I think there's also a twinge of the wrestling fans weren't done with him yet. When he finished in 2003, I think people thought that they were still going to get some more out of him. And when he left the way he did, retiring sort of under the radar in 2003 after that WrestleMania 19 match, coupled with the fact that at the height of his popularity, we lost him for a year, I think that it was maybe a case that it's kind of the same thing with me, almost the way I think of fans think of CM Punk. I think a lot of fans chant CM Punk and yell for CM Punk to this day because they lost Punk and it wasn't on the wrestling fans' terms. It was on CM Punk's terms. He left before the fans were finished with him or were ready for him to leave. And it's the same thing with Austin, I think, to a degree. I mean, they're obviously not the same stratosphere of popularity. Austin was Austin, and Punk was very popular, but he certainly wasn't Steve Austin's height of popularity. So I think there is something to be said for sometimes fans when they lose somebody before they're ready for them to go. It enhances their popularity to agree. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does, because you want the closure as a fan. You want to know what the hell's going on. Like
That's
you look at like
exactly.
Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels. You look at Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels at Mania 24, and you knew that that was closure for Ric Flair. We were all okay with it. But then you use somebody like CM Punk, as you said, who I know you think CM Punk was just popular. In my eyes, CM Punk was on the verge of being the Stone Cold Steve Austin of the next generation. But because he left the company so abruptly, we didn't fully get there.
See, whereas with me, I think that his momentum at that point when he left was already cooled. I don't think he was nearly as popular in 2014 than he was in 2011 or 2012. But that's just me. I mean, I could be wrong. I could be way off base, but that's just my perception of it. And I'm not trying to say that. I think that to your point about Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels, I think the fans had closure with Ric Flair. The fans had seen him for 35 years. The fans were perfectly, I mean, it was sad, obviously, but people were like, okay, well, I'm fine with him going off into the sunset. It was Ric Flair that wasn't okay with it. And that's why he kept wrestling at Impact and doing that Hulkamania tour in Australia and stuff like that. As far as Austin goes,
if Ric Flair could have wrestled in 2020 with Randy Orton, Ric Flair would have wrestled in 2020 with Randy Orton. We all know that.
100%,
we just
100%.
None of us want to see that. Like, I love Flair. Flair's one of my favorites. Even his version of Flair in 2001, upwards of 2008, 2009, where he wasn't the greatest, I still loved him at that point. You know what I mean?
I did too. I thought he could still go to a very high level as well at that point. I mean, he was doing stuff. He was doing the right thing as well, getting younger guys over. He was working with Evolution and all that kind of thing. But as far as Austin goes, I just think that there's something to be said for the fact that I think I'm not trying to dismiss his popularity whatsoever. He was one of the most popular ever, one of the most successful ever, and I thought he was phenomenal. But I definitely think that for some people, that's part of the reason why it was a bitter pill for the fans to swallow that he finished up and we had lost a year of him already. And then on top of that, so we lose a year for the injury. Then we lose another 8 months because of the walkout. And then he comes back and he does 2 or 3 matches and then he's done. So I just think that the fan base that were huge Austin marks never did get that, to your point, never did get that closure with the Austin character in ring. Yeah, we got the Sheriff Austin, we got the co-GM Austin. That stuff was fine. It was fun, a lot of it. I enjoyed the segments where he would be with Bischoff and stuff like that. But as far as an in-ring match, I mean, yeah, you're not going to go out better than doing Rock Austin 3. It ties up their career in the Attitude Era perfectly. But I think all things being equal, fans definitely would have wanted to see a couple more matches out of Austin.
Well, and like you said, at least we got the Mania 19 match with Rock, which, as much as I was not wanting another Rock Austin match, it finally put Rock over, which was good.
Yeah,
because we all knew at WrestleMania 19 in 2003 that young upstart blue chipper Rocky Maivita needed the rub still.
Yeah,
but at least that was our final match, and it wasn't at the pay-per-view prior to that where he had that horrible, I don't even want to call it a match with Eric Bischoff.
I don't think it wasn't even, it wasn't really a match. I don't think it was horrible. I think it was just Austin coming out and just destroying Bischoff. For my money, I mean, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of people disagreeing with me on this, but for my money, the WrestleMania 19 Austin Rock match was the best of the 3. That's just for me, though. There was no schmoz. There was no outside interference. There was no brawling on the outside. It was just a pure physical, tight, snug wrestling match, and that's my taste. So I thought, from my perspective, it was the best of the 3.
Oh, you're not going to get any argument from me on this one. You weren't getting that swerve heel turn that we got at 17. You weren't getting the whole corporation involvement that we got at 15. This was
Yeah.
just two veterans going out, tearing down the house on a very stacked card as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody remembers Brock Lesnar hitting the shooting star press, but I don't think that the Rock Austin match gets enough love from that card.
I don't think so either. And again, I think that all things being equal, if you could go back and rebook that one, you put that one on top, I think. Knowing what we know now with Austin retiring, having it his last match, I think that goes on top instead of, I mean, especially with the angle Lesnar, I think the way the match went, I think that Austin Rock should have been the closer on that show.
I mean, as I said earlier, I'm kind of a purist historian when it comes to the fact that I think the title should always go on last. But yes, this is one of the exceptions that I will agree with you that we should have closed the show with Rock Austin, especially with the way the match ended with like Rock pushing Baby Earl out of the way, having that little moment where you could see them talking and genuinely see them expressing their love for each other.
Yeah.
That brotherhood is something that could have ended the show and everybody would have been very happy with.
Yeah. But I don't think I didn't have any idea that was going to be his last match. I mean, I watched that live. I don't know if you watched it live or not, but maybe you did have an indication. I had no idea that was going to be his last match. Did you?
I was 17 at the time, man. I thought I knew things, but I knew nothing at the time. So no, I had no idea until the way I found out about the exact story of what happened to him was when the WrestleMania 20 DVD came out. And they had the little documentary as one of the discs where you talked about Austin with his heart rate going all the way through the roof, drinking too much coffee, drinking too much Red Bull, and just not thinking he was even going to be able to perform.
Yeah, that's right. And the story about seeing the WWE executive Liz DeFabio in the hallway, and she was calling 911 and all this kind of stuff. And he had been in the hospital overnight. He didn't even get released until I think 9 or 10 in the morning. So yeah, and that was a great. I love that you threw back to that. That was a great DVD. I love that little documentary. It was phenomenal. A real hidden gem for anybody that hasn't seen that. If you are able to get your hands on the WrestleMania 20 or WrestleMania 20 DVD, or I'm sure you can find it on YouTube or Daily Motion. It's called The Mania of WrestleMania, and it's a phenomenal little documentary. It's a little over an hour long. I really love that. I'm sure that you did too, Ty.
I love that it was narrated by Jesse Ventura too. Like it was a total throwback. It was a very well executed documentary. Like as much as we all bitch and complain about things that the Fed does, they do documentaries so well.
Better than anyone.
I pretty much like
even better than major sports. Like maybe like 30 for 30 is probably like ESPN's probably close or maybe on par, but like it's better than the NHL, better than NFL films. Like you're not going to find better production quality for these documentaries than WWF. I'm sorry.
The only one that I say might even be a little bit better, and I know you watched it over lockdown as well, was The Last Dance, the one on Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
That was just, and apparently they're doing one, the producers of that are doing one on Steve Austin.
I was just about to say, yeah, interestingly enough, Steve Austin.
I am so excited for that. The only thing I hate about these things is living in the generation that we do of binge watching and culture. I want it all to come out at once because I'm going to watch it more than one time. I don't want to wait a week for an episode or two. I want everything to come out at once. I can put on my sweatpants. I can get a case of beer. I can order a pizza and I can just fanboy the hell out for a few hours.
Well, you know what I just do with that? Like I do that with, I know we're getting off topic here, but I do that with like, I don't normally watch a lot of episodic television. Like I watch stuff on streaming service like Crave and Netflix and stuff. But like for my favorite show on television for the last few years has been Billions, and I love it. So what I do is typically if they release episodes, sometimes I'll wait like a month before I start watching. So that way I have like 4 to binge. And then sometimes after that, then I'm okay for a while. I don't need to watch it weekly. So I just I did the same thing with The Last Dance. I didn't watch it every week. I watched it like maybe once every 3 weeks. So I could binge and be satiated after 3 episodes because you're never good with one, but you're not going to necessarily sit and watch all 12 in a row either. So you're usually the sweet spot for me is between 3 and 4 episodes and I'm good.
Yeah, weirdly enough, like again, way off topic, but the wife and I, the one show that we're watching right now that actually is just a cable television episodic show is the reboot of Saved by the Bell.
Oh,
And
I've heard about this.
every week they are dropping two new episodes, and it is so well done because we all grew up watching, at least you and I did in our generation, grew up watching Saved by the Bell, and
Yeah.
it was a really bad show. Like it dealt with some hard issues from time to time, but for the most part, it was just a bunch of rich California kids getting what they wanted. And
Yeah.
in the reboot, they take the piss out of everything. They know what they are. They know they're these rich kids. They don't understand the word no. They don't think that anything that they're doing is weird. And it's also like the main star of the show is supposed to be Zach Morris's kid. It's so well
Yeah.
done. Anybody who has not watched this yet, I cannot recommend it more.
No, no, no. I'm planning on having a look at it. You know, my girlfriend, who's quite a bit younger than me, actually, she's watched it when she was growing up. I guess in syndication or reruns. So she was telling me she had no idea that that it existed. So we saw a commercial for it, and I was like, "Yeah, it's been out for like a month or two now." So she's like, "Oh, we gotta watch that." I was like, "Sure, I'll watch that." We're just binge watching Hell's Kitchen right now, but we'll definitely get to that one. Anyways, I will definitely check out the over the holidays. I'm sure I'll do some binge watching of Saved by the Bell. Fortunately for us this week, we were saved by Tyrone. He saved us from, well, it wasn't necessarily the worst card that was existing in WWF canon, but you definitely did improve it quite a bit. I enjoyed it immensely. Have to disagree with some of the match placement. Don't disagree with a lot of the matches, though. So with that being said, do you want to just quickly run us through what you had booked again, just so we can get a final on what this card was?
Absolutely. We started it off with the feel good moment of Lord Steven Regal, the manly man, coming out and defeating Tiger Ali Singh, to which we went on to the Nation, or not Nation of Domination, as we realized. D'Lo Brown and Mark Henry defeating LOD 2000 or LOD New or Draws an Animal, whatever the hell you want to call them. Then
Okay.
we had Goldust and Val Venus going to a no contest. We had the Brood defeating the Job Squad, the New Age Outlaws defeating the Headbangers, Vinnie Jones beating the Stooges, Sable defeating Jacqueline, Ken Shamrock retaining the IC title in a triple threat, Shane McMahon beating X-Pac for the European title in a Duchess of Queensberry rules match, your favorite, the Big Boss Man beating Austin, not on the top of the card, Kane winning the number one contendership, and The Rock beating Triple H in a first blood match for the World Wrestling Federation Championship.
Well, there you go. That is the Attitude Era in a nutshell, folks. You're not going to get too much more in terms of Attitude Era-esque booking, and you're definitely hitting a lot of the key players of the Attitude Era included in this card. So I say, all in all, it's a thumbs up. Good booking. Again, I'm not going to agree with everything. Obviously, we never can. But we've been pretty tempered over the last couple of weeks just based on the holidays, and I think we're giving each other a break. But with that being said, we do have the show must go on. And what do you have for me next week? What am I booking?
I think it's about damn time that we touch on something other than the Fed. So I'm going to take you back to December 27th, 1998, the MCI Center in Washington, D.C. And you, my friend, are going to be rebooking WCW Starrcade 98. The wonderful, wonderful Kevin Nash versus Bill Goldberg title match.
I'm sorry, I'm rebooking 1998 Starrcade.
Sorry, no, I meant to say 97 with the return of Sting. I got a little bit ahead of myself there, Jay.
No problem at all. I was just a little bit, I wasn't sure. I know that 97 is more your favorite year than 98 for WCW. So I was kind of surprised you wanted me to do 98. So that's good. Yeah, I look forward to that.
I have Goldberg on the brain right now with his rumored return and potential WrestleMania main event that it just gets me so fired up. But the hell, we're going 97. We're doing Sting, and Sting's getting kind of making his return there to WCW, and Sting just kind of made his return to AEW, so it kind of ties in right there.
Yeah, it's kind of timely. I get that. I'd be interested to go back and watch that card from, if memory serves. The chase was much better than the conquest in terms of that main event. I don't think that main event held up to a year and a half build, but I'll have to go back and watch it. I'll have to see. But okay, well, that sounds great. I will definitely watch that one. Looking forward to sinking my teeth into WCW 97. To me, it was probably the height of the WCW versus NWO feud before it all got convoluted. So I'm looking forward to sinking my teeth into that one, buddy. But with that being said, I'm going to get busy tuning into the WWE Network. You have anything else you want to plug this week? I guess our socials.
Yeah, you know where to find us on Twitter, kids. It's good_enemies. And on Instagram, it's good_enemies. And if you guys have any ideas for anything you want to hear, any events you want us to rebook, it doesn't really matter the federation at this point. We'll even go old school, we'll do new school, we'll do Japan, Mexico, everything like that. Drop a comment right here on this YouTube page.
That's right. We'll even rebook your pizza order if you're not satisfied with it. We'll just change it up and we'll send you a different wing sauce, different six-pack of Pepsi or Coke products, whatever you think is best. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, next week we are on to Starrcade 1997. And for Tyrone and myself, thank you very much, Tyrone. You did an exquisite job. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you. And you've been listening to the Good Friends, Better Enemies podcast.
Ho, ho, ho.